Hello, everyone, and welcome to the latest episode of the Metabolism and Menopause podcast. My name is Stephanie, and I'm your host and CEO of Vitality OET. We are a women's nutrition, health, and fitness company that focuses predominantly on women's hormones, particularly as they start going through perimenopause and onwards. We know that you start experiencing so many changes in this time of your life, whether it be hot flashes, night sweats, irritability, brain fog, or that weight gain around the middle that seems to have come out of absolutely nowhere despite you not changing anything. So you go back to those tried and true methods of cutting calories, cutting carbs, doing a bunch of cardio, yet nothing seems to be working despite you working so hard, and the scale starts moving in the opposite direction. But we know now that your body is inherently different than what it was to you prior to you experiencing these hormonal changes. So our mission here at Vitality is to help you really understand what happens to your body during this time of your life, so you can reach those health and fitness goals, feel in control and at home in your body again, live a life full of vitality, and understand how to take care of this new body of yours. So today, I have a very special guest on, my good friend, Jessica Gunn. She is also a coach. She is a personal trainer. She has a fitness app, and she transformed her life in her 40s after having kids and has done an amazing job. And we want to talk about how her journey led her to where she is now, how she's helping other women. And we touched on everything in this podcast, and I mean everything. We talked about exercise, we talked about nutrition, we talked about identity and motivation and the real key things to get you the results that you're looking for. So I hope you enjoy this as much as I enjoyed having this conversation with her. Please make sure to give her a follow. Her information is in the show notes. And if you love this episode, please share it on your social media, tag us in it. It would mean the world to us. Enjoy. So today I am super excited to have my friend Jess on. We met probably maybe half a year ago, maybe. I don't even think it's been that long, but we clicked right away. And we were both so in love with transformation and exercise and all things midlife and all those things. And today we really wanted to talk about motivation type stuff because it's something that comes up all of the time. But Jess, before we jump in, why don't you tell everyone a little bit about yourself and your journey a little bit?
Well, thank you. For one, I'm so glad to be here because you're one of my favorite people. That's why when I sat next to you at that table, I was like, I got to get to know her better. And I love it. That's as being a coach, probably one of my very favorite things is the connection with other coaches because we get it. It's not only can I learn from you, hopefully I can share back, but I really appreciate that. I started my own journey. I was age 37 after having 4 kids, and kind of like we were just chatting about is motherhood can be very overwhelming. I remember looking down at my body in a swimsuit one year. It was summer and it had fit the summer before, and it's I don't necessarily recognize my body, but I don't also feel like myself. There was a little bit of disconnect emotionally and physically, and it's very overwhelming going through this process, right, of taking care of these cute humans. And I loved it, but I found that I kind of lost myself because I wasn't taking care of myself. And so that's when I something has to happen. And so I started shifting some of my eating habits, started exercising a whole year later. So it's been a process, but I felt so much better. And my kids noticed, and one of my daughters said to me once, you seem happier. You don't yell as much anymore. And I bawled, because that's the whole point, right? Because I realized your kids aren't going to care what the number on the scale says. As much as we put value right on that, nobody around you, it's not like you're going to say, hey, Jess, if you're 2 pounds up today, we're not friends, But in my head, that's what I think, no one's going to want me if I don't want myself, right? Because the scale. And so when I realized oh my gosh, by shifting and reducing sugar, that's all that first thing change was. I wasn't as irritable and cranky with my kids, and they noticed, right? Because it's such a gradual shift for us. And so that's when I was I have to help every other woman learn this. And then it's just kind of grown to where it's strength training, right? That's where we find the confidence that's built with building a strong body, and that really positive, healthy correlation with exercise, where it's not, hours and hours of cardio to get thin or skinny, but to find that strongest version of you, because then it carries on to all aspects of your life. And so that's why I love chatting with you, because there's so many things that we have found with clients now that I'm now a trainer and I've got an app and a program, and I just want to help women feel better and have those same aha moments that I have. Because they're life-changing.
Yes.
Totally. So good.
Totally. So everyone kind of gets stuck in that okay, I wanna change things, but how do I change things? It's like, because I'm not a person who like works out. I like my this, I like my that. I don't want to give up my wine. Like, so how, like, I know we had a really good conversation about this. So I kind of want to like recurate that somehow, but like how can we get women to start changing their life when they're kind of still holding on to these other things, if that kind of makes sense?
No, this is great. And I want your thoughts on this too. So having gone through this myself, I'm 44 now. So, I've been focusing on this for the last few years, and then now I haven't been able to coach, we both of us coach thousands of women through online and in person. And I've came to the conclusion of like, well, what worked for me that will work for a majority of people, but then, understanding all of us have slightly different needs. And the few things that stood out to me was think of like why people don't stick with their plan, right? Not seeing results, right? And that's easier to tweak, like adjust calories, adjust their workout. But the big thing is like, I just don't feel like it, right? Just like you said, I don't want to give that up, or I'm not motivated to give that up. Or I'm not motivated to get up and work out. And oh my gosh, I mean, it took me to age 37 to actually get past that. But in the process, I've learned a few things. I feel like one thing you and I talked about is the difference between being interested and committed. And so when I have someone reach out to me and they're like, I want to change, and it can be because they want to feel better, or they want to move better, or they want to look better, right? And any of those, and sometimes it's all three. The first question I'll ask them is, great, but I need to be able to coach you. I need to understand, are you interested or committed? They're like, what do you mean? And so when you really like, it's some good self-reflection, because you got to know like, how much am I willing to give? How bad do I want it? And so if you're interested, like there's a lot of things I'm interested in. I'm interested in learning how to snowboard. But when it comes down to paying the price to go up on the mountain and eating it, I'm tall. Like 6 feet is tall if you're falling, right? Like I am not coordinated. It's going to be harder for me to learn. It's freezing cold. So then I'm like, I don't want to do that this season, maybe next season, right? That's interested in it. I expressed interest. I've checked it out, but I don't want to put the work into it. Committed is like, this is going to suck. I'm going to fall. I'm going to be bruised, potentially breaking something because I'm that not coordinated. It's going to cost a couple $100, but I will make it happen because I want the result of being a snowboarder, right? Not that interest to be fun to have that hobby and to say I can snowboard, but I want to be a snowboarder. And so you have to step back and say, it's okay, but are you interested? Or are you committed? And it's that difference, because for years I was interested, but I never stuck with anything. And so then the question is, you've got to look at, okay, so what is the transition between that? But have you found that between clients where they'd like to have the results, but they don't necessarily want to put the work in? It's like dabbling.
Totally. It's like if you're interested, you're not willing to make sacrifice. If you're committed, you are. And I think there's a big difference between like, just because I feel like I'm trying, I therefore deserve this result, or because it feels challenging, I deserve this. When really it's like, okay, you feel like it's challenging, you feel like you're doing the things, but are you actually doing the things? Because intention of like, I really want this, I want to do this, I feel like I'm working hard versus, but are you hitting the goals? Are you doing the things? Are you going to the gym? Are you actually trying your hardest and like getting stronger? Like there's a difference between intention and action. And I think intention is always with like interest, like whereas like your actions like follow through when you're actually committed. Because we all have this idea of like, well, I feel like I'm doing really hard. I feel like I'm more consistent. And it's like, you feel, but are you? Like, because our emotions and fact can be wildly different than what it actually is.
Yeah. Well, as women, like, I wake up every day and I'm like, how am I going to feel today? I'm like, I have no idea. It depends on where I'm in my cycle. Like, I don't know. Kids ticking me off. Did I sleep well the night before? And so to your point, the best way, because I try to like analogies, because it's so hard when that people say, well, I feel, which means it's valid, right? But then they're not seeing results. So like our job as coaches is to help them maybe decipher that term. So the one thing I came up with that at least makes sense for me, and this is a little bit sensitive, again, because it's such a personal thing, when people really feel like they're doing their best and working their hardest, I don't ever want to say, well, that's not good enough, because anything is good. But the best way I can describe it is what I call my level of effort scale, because I realized level of effort you put into something and something being hard are two totally different things. And so I'll take just a second to share is like on a 0 to 10 level of effort scale. When I first started, I was probably a -4. Like I didn't want to put anything into it. I wanted the body, did not want to do anything because I was just super lazy. And that's okay. I own that. That was the stage of life I was in. But then I realized, okay, right? I'm yelling, I'm not comfortable with my kids because of how cranky I am. And I realized that, again, no one will care how skinny I am, but they're going to care how I make them feel. So like my kids don't remember, oh, she weighed a certain amount, but they'll remember if I was cranky at night or if I was loving, if I was patient, if I was temperamental, right? And I hated that because that mom guilt was awful. I didn't want to feel that way. So that's where it was like, okay, I will start to make some changes. So on a level effort of 0 to 10, I went from like a 0 to a 1. And I will tell you, that 1 was probably the hardest thing I've ever done, right? It was cutting out sugar. It was reducing sugar. And when you have consumed sugar forever, you've never counted calories, you don't understand how to read a label, you just kind of eat what your kids do because a lot of times it's survival. It was really, really, really hard to go to these events and be like, I'm not going to have the cookies because I already had a treat earlier in the day, right? Because it wasn't about no treats, but I realized I was having like 9 or 10 treats a day, none of them that were healthy. And so I'm like, okay, I need to get down to like 2. And so I worked my way down and figured out a process that worked. But that was really, really hard. And it may sound silly because there's so many things you need to do to change how you feel and look. But like that one thing was more effort than I would have been doing. So then it was like, okay, so now I'm ready to do one more thing. So if I'm ready to now exercise. So let's say, or what I did personally was I got an app. It was a 20-minute HIIT workout, all body weight. I did it from home, super easy. It was really hard for me to commit to doing that, and I hated it. I don't like body weight movements. I don't like getting a high heart rate. Any sort of cardio is like awful for me. And so I knew that I was like, I'm going to commit to 3 times a week. But I watched an episode of Grey's Anatomy through every single one. So instead of it being 20 minutes, it's like an hour. So I didn't even get the effects of the HIIT workout, right? Because I paused. I would do like 8 reverse lunges and I would wait 4 minutes because I got so involved in the show. And then I was like, oh, what am I doing? Squats. And I would do squats. And then my heart rate would come down. So the level of effort was so hard. And for me, the best I could do was watching a TV show. But it was like you were saying, I feel like this is really, really, really hard. But in actuality, like the level of effort that I was putting in was pretty low. So maybe I'd gone from a 1 to a 2 now because I was watching my sugar intake and I was doing HIIT workouts. And then over time, I realized that my girlfriend was doing the same program. She started losing body fat faster. She started to get a little bit more muscle gain faster. And I was so annoyed because we're doing the same 3 HIIT workouts a week. Why was she seeing progress? So when I asked her about it, she said, well, you do them in the 20 minutes, right? I'm like, no, I watched my TV show. She's like, well, then that kind of negates the purpose of it. And so I had to stop and say, well, like for me, I actually wasn't working out to lose the weight at first. It was building a habit. I just wanted to do it. I just wanted to say, I showed up and I did it. I don't care how long it takes. And so her level of effort was more of a 4 because she did them in 20 minutes, which was harder. Whereas I wasn't willing to do that. I needed to take pauses because that's where I was and I was okay with that. But the thing is, her body reflected a level 4 body because she was putting a level effort 4 in. Whereas my body and how I felt, moved, and looked reflected a level 2 because that's all that I could put in because that was so hard for me. So the problem is the disconnect is when I look at my friend who has a level 4 body due to a level 4 effort level, I want the level 4 body, but I'm putting a level effort too. And so it's just like, so then in time, and I'm talking like over years, I slowly went from like buying the crappy protein shakes at Costco to like looking at quality protein, and I actually invested in a better quality protein. So that bumped me up a level of effort because it's a pain to like spend more money. That was more effort on my part. And then I went to, okay, I'm going to actually join a gym and strength train, right? So my level of effort went up again. And then instead of lifting like 2 days a week, I now lift 3 days a week. And then instead of like just high reps, low weight, I'm now lifting heavier, right, with lower reps. I'm now paying for an actual program. I'm now paying for a coach in person. So my level of effort goes up and up and up. And that's when my body changed and how I feel, move, and look. It's like when someone, because there's the comparison game. So if we can talk about it's okay to step back and reflect like, I'm okay only putting a level effort 2 right now. That is all I can give with my time constraints, work schedule, little kids at home, which was my case. I couldn't do more and I didn't want to do more. And so I was okay and so proud of myself because it was so hard for me, even at a level 2. But I was also okay with a level 2 body and how it felt, moved, and looked. But now, like, I'm probably at like a level 9 or 10 now. There's like not much I wouldn't do. I lift 6 days a week for 2 hours. I pay for coaches. I have the expensive supplements. Like, but it took me months and then years to get to the point to where I saw the value. I had the consistency down. I went from interested to committed. So that kind of wraps that up. Like as we get more and more committed, we're able to put more time, effort, money, trust the process, show up more, work harder. But the disconnect is every level. And I think that the first few levels of effort are the hardest. So it goes back to, I feel. I'm like, that's great. But your level of effort's at a 1. You're not going to see level 8 body results. So that kind of helps a little bit.
Totally. And like the consistency in each level, like you can't expect to like only like decrease sugar on 2 days and be like, oh, I'm decreasing sugar. Like it's the consistency within each level that allows you to like move on to the next thing. And I think that's where a lot of people like disconnect. It's like, I'm doing this and this and this and this and this. And it's like, okay, but how consistent are you doing that like day to day and sticking to the plan? Like that's a very different place to be, but also like you have to be okay with adjusting your expectations based on those things. And I think that's the hardest thing for women is like, you know, they're like, well, I shouldn't have to restrict super, super insanely. Like that's what you say. I'm like, yes, but you also need to realize that if you're having a glass of wine 2 days a week, 3 days a week, or even 4 in a weekend, like that's a choice that you're making. And that's fine. You are responsible for your choices. I will never make you feel poorly for it. But based on those choices you're making, like, what are the consequences of that? Like, you have to take responsibility for no one made that choice except you. So that's the first part, which like can really suck. But then it's like, then you have to take a responsibility for the consequences that happen from that choice you made. Just like with your kids, right? Like if they do something they're not supposed to do, they get the consequence of, you know, being grounded or losing cell phone privileges or whatever. And it's like, you're teaching them that, okay, you made this choice. The consequence of that choice is this grounding. Yes. It's the same thing for you in your health journey, but like, we think that we don't apply to the rules.
It is. And if you ask her, like, that's great. If you want 4 glasses of wine through the week, that will give you a level 5 body. Are you okay with that in how you feel, move, and look? And if you're not okay, you're like, well, I want the level 7. Great. Then you have to cut back on the wine or, you know, whatever else is keeping her.
Yeah. And it takes sacrifice. And if there's sacrifices you're not willing to make, then you just have to adjust your expectations. And there's nothing wrong with that. But you have to be okay with that, like adjustment in like the expectation of what that looks like. Cause like you, like that comes to a you thing. Cause like I will support you in your choices. I will give you all the information. I will point out where we need to like improve things. But what it ultimately comes down to is with all the information that I give you and support, you still make choices based on your own decision making, which we need to like figure that out. But like, then you need to take responsibility for those choices and the consequences and then adjust your expectations accordingly, which like is always a tough conversation. Like it's never a fun one to have, but it happens a lot because we like quote unquote feel because we're working so hard or whatever, right? So it's just like, yeah.
It is. It's like, and I think kind of what you said in the beginning is when you go through this transformation, you're changing your identity, right? And so one thing when you say consistency, that really is it. Like when I first again start with a client, I'll ask like, how consistent are you, right? And everyone's like, well, you know, I'm okay. And I'm like, okay, so then answer this question. How often do you floss your teeth at night or a morning, right? And they'll say, I probably floss twice a week, once a month. You know, I want to floss. We all want to floss more, but we don't floss. And they're like, why are you asking me about my flossing, right? And so then I explain, there's nothing easier than flossing. It's cheap. It takes 1 minute. It's sitting next to your toothbrush that you're always going to use, right? So you can't forget about it, but we still don't do it. And so that tells me, okay, you're not necessarily a consistent person. Your identity is not someone that's consistent if you can't floss. So please know, going to the huge things like getting to the gym 4 times a week or cutting out or reducing your treats or all these big things is going to be really hard, not because you're bad or something's wrong with you. It's because you're not a consistent individual. And then that's a whole other ballgame because at that point, we're not working on like getting 4 workouts in a week. We're working on becoming consistent. So that's when it's just show up. Like I'll tell clients, like on the days you don't want to go, I don't care if you just drive to the parking lot and sit. You showed up because the act is not what are you doing in there. The act is we're shifting your identity to be a consistent person because that's when you'll see more results. And so they're like, you just want me to go and sit in the parking lot? I'm like, well, that's better than, I mean, you're not going to go at all, right? They're like, no, I'm not going today. I just don't feel like it. Okay, well then I want you to go sit in the parking lot, 2 minutes, come home. And then the next time I want you to go in and I want you to scan your little, ID saying you're there. And I want you to go to the bathroom, wash your hands and come back home. Are you serious? I'm like, yes, because that's what helps you get consistent. And then I want you to walk 5 minutes on the treadmill and then come home. And in time, they're like, well, crap, if I'm already here, I might as well do something, right? But it's just getting past the I don't feel, as you said, I don't feel like it, to, okay, wait, the point is not even getting the result. The point is becoming consistent.
Well, and I think that's what it is. It's like we hold on to this past version of ourselves. And like, I talked about this with, I can't remember who I was talking to about it, but it's like, you know, when you like we're in business, we like, you know, we're around entrepreneurs and it's so great and people they just get it and it's awesome and you love it. And then it's like you come home and like things are okay. But then it's like you go back to like your hometown or you see people from high school or people who knew you 10 years ago. And then it's almost like they don't know you, right? Like they kind of almost pull you back into the person that you used to be, which is part of the reason that I don't like going like to certain events or things like that, because I feel like they speak to me and expect me to be this person I used to be, which was like timid and shy and not successful and like wouldn't speak my mind. And now it's like, hello.
Now you're a badass. You're like, look at all that I'm doing.
So it's like, but it's this change in identity, and it can be really uncomfortable because maybe you have people that are really close to you and you are afraid of like what they're going to think of you, or they're not going to support you, or you get the whole, like Andrew Coates posted about it today, where it's like, oh, like you've changed, you're not the same person anymore. And it's like, yeah, no, like I'm healthy and I feel good and I prioritize this and there's nothing wrong with that. But I think we get so scared of like, oh man, what's like my best friend going to think if I don't have a glass of wine tonight? It's like, when you were pregnant, you didn't have a glass of wine, she didn't care. Why should it matter when you're trying to like improve your health and your hormones and your body composition? Like it's just needing to like that holding onto the past identity and being afraid of what this change could mean to that can be really like debilitating for some people.
Mm-hmm. It took me a while to figure that out because I think, I don't know, my example maybe is a little more extreme to where I've never been an athlete. I've never been on a sports team. I'm just uncoordinated, goofy, lazy. I didn't want to do any of it. So I just supported my siblings. And then on the food side, like I said, I've had an ectomorph body type. And so I kind of got away with eating what I wanted. And then I didn't, right? Then it all caught up. And so it was like, I really know nothing. So there's not anyone that was like, I could win an award for knowing the least amount when I started. And so that person though, that when I started compared to now, like you said, when I run into somebody, they're always like, wait, you? What are you talking about? Like, there's no way on earth, not only do you exercise, but like, that's laughable. Like, you help other people? Because my mailbox is like 4 houses down in a box. I would drive. Like, I'm not stopping unless, you know, I'm on my way back from the store and it's convenient. I'm like walking 4 houses. No, thank you. Especially if it's like cold or I'm out of sweat. Like, that was just all me. And so it literally, it's not... we talk about this all the time, right? It's not the results, it's the process, and you have to let it change you or nothing will change. And so kind of going back to the snowboarder, like I think it's really cool to be a snowboarding, right? That's like a huge thing where I live. We're known for our mountains. Like the Olympics were here. Skiing and snowboarding is huge. And it's like a cool, tough thing. I would love to be able to do that. If I do that, it goes from someone that wishes they could be to I am a snowboarder. Mm-hmm. And so like an easy example is in the morning, I hated early mornings. And so my kids, I've got 4 kids. I would always tell them like, if my eyes are closed and it's 8 a.m. or earlier, don't touch me, right? Unless there's like the house is on fire. Yeah. Let me sleep. Because they'd come in for the dumbest stuff. So I'm like, 8 a.m. or past, you can wake me up. It was awful because I hated mornings, despised them. But now I'm up at 5:30 every morning and I love it. And so I allowed myself, like, I used to be someone, my identity was, everyone knew it. It was like, oh, Jess won't take you to the airport in the morning. She hates mornings. My identity was like, I'm not a morning person. And I clung to that. It literally made all kinds of decisions for me. I'm not going here. I'm not going there. I don't want to go that early. I'll catch the next thing. But now through shifting, like, oh my gosh, and I only would wake up like 10 minutes earlier, and then I got good at 10 minutes earlier, and then I got, you know, you do these things to change the habit. Whereas now, over years of working on it, I have a new identity where I can say, I'm not someone that would like to wake up earlier, like I am an early riser. Mm-hmm. And it's just so crazy how you let the process of like slowly shifting with an action plan each week, how to get better at that. And you have to allow it to change. This is not just like, my favorite message I got from somebody, and not for a good reason, was It was super short and sweet. She just said, I will join your online app because it's a fitness program if you can guarantee that you'll help me lose 10 pounds in a month. And I was like, you're for 10 pounds in a month? Like, I know nothing about you. And it's not on me, it's on you. But it was just the fact that she missed the process. Like, no. Like, we don't do this just for the 10-pound fat loss. Like, that's the byproduct of changing you, right? All that's about you. And then we get the byproducts of fat loss, muscle gain, and all those things. It's just so powerful to think of the things that we would like to be and then work on one of those, you know?
Well, and then it's like we define what those things mean, right? Because like I think people are like, oh, if I'm a person who works out, then I don't prioritize my family. Or if I'm a person who does this and eats super healthy, then I can't go out with my friends. If I'm a person who, like, you know what I mean? Like we define what those things are. Like I used to be like, oh man, I'm a crybaby. I'm a sobber. I am like weak. Like to me, I was like, I hated crying in public, and like it would happen because I'm an emotional person. And I would see it as like weak, and I didn't like it. And I was like, this makes me less than. And now I'm like, honestly, crying, it's happened every time I've spoken at an event, literally ever. Like it happens every single time. But it's like, I feel like it's become like a good thing. It's how I connect with people. It's how I show my authenticity. And so like when it comes with like changing your identity and like who you are, like you get to define what those things actually mean. Like no one else gets to tell you like, oh, because you're someone who works out, you must not prioritize your family. It's like, no, I think that if you are going to the gym, like you're prioritizing your family by like leading by example, by being healthy, by teaching your family about it, by being able to show up. You're more resilient. So like if something happens, someone gets injured, you can help pick them up, like all of these things. But like, I think we have like so many like definitions of certain things based on like one experience or one person that we know, and then just like kind of stereotype it all. And I think we have to like dig a little bit deeper almost to really identify like, okay, why do I think that this is a bad thing? Like what is the negative connotation, and like where did that come from? Because I didn't just make it up. Like it's either something I saw or experienced or heard or like I'm afraid of, that's like deep rooted insecurity. Like you need to like address those things, because once you do, then it's so much easier to like step into this new person that you're going to become.
Yeah. You know, I had an awesome conversation with a client last week where she was very, very overwhelmed, right? So kind of going back to like, how do you just stay motivated? I quit. And it's so hard to watch your clients because they can stay for so long and then there's the drop and they just can't come back. And you're like, you've worked so hard. And I found that, and I struggled with this myself, that and tell me your thoughts on this, because I feel like they put the emphasis on the wrong thing to be motivated by, in the sense that we look at, like when people say, what is your goal? And they're like, well, I want to lose 30 pounds. I want to weigh 140 on the scale. You know, that's usually the typical goals you'll get. And then you want to be toned, you know, they want to add that. But I always have to correct them and say, no, like losing 30 pounds or weighing a certain amount on a scale, that's not a goal, right? That's the result. So that will only happen as like an after, right? As an afterthought, or it's like the byproduct. So like, what do you mean? That is my goal. I'm like, no, the goal is work backwards. Like if you want to lose 30 pounds of body fat, what do you have to do? So then I always have them like make actionable steps by looking at their week with realistic expectations, just like I know you do, where it's like, okay, so assess the first week I have, let's say water. Okay, we'll take the example of water. Well, no, because if it's losing 30 pounds of body fat, let's say snacks, right? So they identify there's a whole bunch of things I need to do that's contributed to being an excess of body fat, right? So if snacks is one, I'm like, okay, so do a food journal. How many snacks do you have a day that you probably don't need? Well, oh my gosh, I'm having 7 snacks a day. Well, what's your goal that you'd like to get back down to? Well, I should probably realistically have 2, right? Because that calorie surplus is killing me. So then it's like every week you come up with an action plan. So your individual goal is, for one, do the action plan for that week. Because as you know, every week we're traveling, we're sick, we've got friends in town. And so I'm not going to stick to the same plan. That's why there's no perfect plan. Like my plan ebbs and flows based on the week. And so when they look at that week and they're like, okay, so if I am at 7 snacks and for this week, my goal is to get down to, let's say, just 5. So then the next couple of days in a row, instead of, 7, you're just working on going down to 6. And then when that gets comfortable, now you're going from 6 to 5. And maybe that 5th one is ice cream. So we pull that out, but we replace it with another one that's more healthier, nutrient dense. And she said, oh, so the goal isn't isn't the fat loss. The goal is just going from 7 snacks to 6. I'm like, yes. And then set up a support system and the right type of foods. And you go week by week with the little micro goals. And then the next week, get a new form for new action plan for that week. And then it's maybe from 6 to 5 or, whatever it is. And then it's like looking at serving sizes actually, or, the food choices of eating out. But each one of those you take months to focus on because you legitimately want to change them, not just cut them out. That's different. Because as you've said, like we changed the identity of the person. I'm no longer the person that is always in a rush. And so I have to stop and get food out of a fast food because I don't make time to get my food done at home. Well, I've changed my identity where now 2 meals I can do at home, and I'm now someone that cooks at home instead of like, oh, I'm someone that eats out all the time, right? It's that I am statement. And so after doing those things over months and months and months, then you reach the results of the 30-pound body fat loss. So when she looks at that of like, I'm not motivated to lose 30 pounds. I'm like, I wouldn't either. That's awful. That's hard. But I can be motivated to go from 7 snacks to 6. I can be motivated to just walk extra 20 minutes a day. And then when that's easy, then maybe I'll add one more workout. So it's like little small things, and those little micro goals each week give you the results. But don't you find too often we focus on the results?
Oh, all the time. Like for clients that we work with, I see it all the time where it's like, or even like a consultation call. They're like, okay, what do I need to do? I'm like, okay, well, you need to reverse. Like you need a reverse diet because you are eating literally air. Like we need to get some protein. We need to get some calories. There's no wonder that you're struggling in the gym. Like you're not nourishing your body enough. And we're like, okay. So I give them like a pretty good outline of like, hey, this is how much I would increase by. This is what you should be working towards protein. This is how long it would take you. Like, okay, cool. So then what do I do there to get to lose 30 pounds? I'm like, no. Like, I'm not even going to talk about that because this in itself is anywhere from like a 2 to 6 month process before we can even worry about that. And I'm not going to give you this crazy plan so you can try and skip steps. Like, I'm not going to give you the whole thing because then you'll try and skip steps. That's like trying to worry about how am I going to invest $1 million when you have $300 to your name? Like, you're worrying about something that you don't even know that you're there yet. Like, we need to like really, really focus on this aspect first. And then you can like worry about the next step. It's like, yeah, you're worrying about like running before you're crawling. You're like, we're just so trying to like get ahead and just like get that result. And it's like, but without actually achieving the consistency and the things beforehand, like you'll probably never get there. And if you do, you're not going to last. Like it's not going to happen. How many diets have you done and workout programs have you done where you just like fall off the horse because it's not sustainable? Like going from 0 workouts to 6 a week. That's not realistic. We start with one.
If you could do that, you'd be doing it.
Exactly.
But as women, why do we do that to ourselves? Because I've been there to where it's like the perfect plan, right? The all or nothing. And it's like they'll sign up for my workout program and it gives you enough workouts for days that people that want to do that. And I always just say, look at where you are. If you're only getting 2 workouts in a week, we're focusing on third. And when that third one gets really, really easy, then we'll add a fourth. Or maybe even before a fourth workout, we just walk more that day or a cardio. And then we move into a fourth. Because it's like you said, like, think of like piano. I think so often, just like you said, we want to jump to having all of it. But like when you're starting scratch at piano, it's on chopsticks. And as a parent with kids that have done piano, chopsticks is terrible. I'm like, just turn the page and do another song. And then they turn it and it's like 1 bit better than chopsticks. It's still terrible. And so it's like months and months and months and years to where they can get to play a song, but yet they still want to be Mozart, right? I'm like, it's your first week of playing the piano. Why on earth do you think you'd be the next Mozart? For one, you're not going to be, but you can get as close as you can. And the closer you get is the more you practice piano every day. And I don't know, that's just really hard concept, I think, because we feel like we've got to do all of it.
Like, everyone just wants to do everything all at once. And I'm like, no, like we'll give you goals, but you also have to understand, why are you doing it? How does this support you? Because like, if you don't know why you're doing something, you won't do it. Like trying to get a kid to like, whatever, try and play a sport that they have 0 interest in, like that never works. Like they're like, why do I want to do this? Because you want me to do this? That sucks. Like, no, they need to like there has to be like some understanding as to the why and how it's going to benefit like all those things, right? Like that's why bribery works with children, because like, oh, if I get to do this, then I get to do this part, which is awesome, right? But like it's just this whole dynamic of like, yeah, just like our perceptions are off and our identities, and like there's just so much stuff that's like not just the nutrition side of stuff. It's like really understanding like the step by steps and like how do we actually get to where we want to be? Like, what does that look like? Because like, if I snap my fingers and you magically lost 30 pounds today, like, is that what you want? Probably not. Like cause it's not going to, you don't know how to sustain it because you haven't learned anything.
It'd be right back.
Exactly. It's just wild.
It's fascinating. I found like, I'll ask someone, cause it's always fat loss goal, which I get, right? That's what I started with in the beginning also. And when I'll say like, okay, so give me your goals. And then I started saying, where do you want to be in 6 months? Describe to me what that looks like, right? Because that's a doable, 6 months is doable. And they're like, same thing, I want to weigh 140 pounds. And then they start to say, but I want like the bicep line, or I want a quad line, I want a bigger butt, I want to be able to do a pull up. You know, they start to describe all these things. And I said, great, so what have you been doing to get that body? And it's always like, well, I'm skipping all these meals, I'm doing hours of cardio. And so then you have to stop and say, well, the body you describe that you see yourself wanting and visualizing in 6 months, I want a body to move, feel, and look like that. You're not doing any of the right plan. So there's so many pieces, you know, to go back again, like I'm not motivated. How many times do you get clients? Because I know you have tons of clients. You got so many women that want to work with you guys, and they come to you, and again, under eating all these things, and they have the idea of this picture of what they want to do with their body. I want to do pull-ups, right? I'm like, well, you're not going to get strong enough to bench press 95 pounds if that's your goal by eating only salads and hours of cardio, right? You've got to actually lift weights to get that goal. So when we can stop and say, well, part of the reason you might not be motivated and you don't want to stick to your workout plan is it's not giving you results because it's the wrong plan. And so just like you said, which I love how you coach, is it isn't cutting, slashing calories. It's looking at how does your body work? What have you done to it in the past? You've been underfeeding it. So let's get it back to a healthy, almost like a base level. And you guys, you and your coaches do so good at that because it's helping them to get to a healthy state. Like it's almost like a scratch, like clear everything you've done in the past history. And then let's build what would you like? And then that's when they say, yeah, I want to see muscle definition. I want to do these hard things, but I'd also like to lose body fat. And we're like, yes, we get that. But the type of workout, the type of eating plan, the type of cardio plan is very different if your only goal is to just get skinny. It's very different if you want to lose some body fat, yes, but also do hard things like push-ups or pull-ups or bench press a certain amount and have muscle definition. And so don't you find like a lot of people give up and don't feel motivated to work out because they don't even have the right plan to support the goal in their head of what they'd like to do?
Well, 100%. Like this is where like people are like, oh, I'm putting in so much effort. I'm working so hard. And it's like, okay, but like you can like think of, okay, let's say that your kid wants to get good at like basketball, but all he practices is golf.
Yeah.
You're not going to get good at basketball.
That's
right.
Perfect. Yes.
Like, but this is like you can work as hard as you want and be like really practice really hard at golf. That's not going to make you a better basketball player. And it's the exact same as this. And I know that sounds like two totally crazy different things, but under eating and doing a bunch of cardio does not equal you looking fit. And like, yes, you might lose weight, especially at the beginning, but the amount of muscle mass that you lose is pretty astronomical, especially once your hormones aren't in your favor. Like, it's really, really hard. And like, then you just become a smaller version of yourself. And half the time you end up having a higher body fat percentage, but you're just smaller because you're putting effort in the wrong direction. That's like, oh, I want to become a millionaire, but I'm like spending money on Starbucks every day instead of putting that $4 in my bank account every day. Like, it's just things like that where like you feel like you're working really hard, and you might be working really hard, but effort in the wrong direction will not give you the results that you want.
It is. That's a perfect analogy. And it's hard because we only know what we know, you know, because then women are like, well, that's why I'm coming to you. But we would go talk about going back to like level of effort. I mean, I pay for my kids to have hitting coaches for softball when they're 8. Like, do they really need a hitting coach when they're 8? No. but it's like I'm investing into their future. I want them to learn the best they can. We pay for piano coaches. We pay, and you'll find all this out having kids very soon. It's so expensive. And it's just like, if I'm willing to put this time and investment in my kids to learn how to kick a soccer ball at age 8, why do I not put the time investing in myself to learn how to eat correctly or train correctly? And it took, like I said, I started with a $20, a month app from home with no interaction because I wasn't ready. My level of effort was at a 1. I didn't want to put any more than that because the identity of where I was someone that didn't like to sweat. I honestly thought, because I failed so many times trying different workout programs before, that this is going to be another failure. I'm not going to put any much into it. Do you find that when you talk to clients, it's like that? Like one of the reasons they don't want to start, I'm like, it's not a money issue. Like my program is $50 a month and you get a ton with it. That is not a lot. I promise you that's like one subway trip with a couple kids. But it's not the money issue. I'm like, so tell me why you don't want to commit. And then ultimately when you peel the onion layers back, it's like, I'm afraid I'm going to fail again because I didn't know how to do it before. And so it's finding like with what you guys with people it's helping women that need hormone help, that need, balance, metabolism health, like all those things that have gotten them to a place where, and it breaks your heart when you're like, they're saying, I'm doing everything possible and I'm not seeing results. And that's where you come in, where you can help them regulate all of those things. And just like we pay for our kids to have soccer coaches and whatnot, it's the same with having somebody guide you through that. And that will help tremendously.
Well, and that's just like, okay, imagine your kid playing in a soccer game and they keep losing. And they're like, and you're like, they want to quit because they don't like losing, right? They feel like a failure. And you're like, well, you're never going to get there. And this isn't just because you lost this game. Doesn't mean you're going to lose the next game, right? You learn something from it and then we apply it and we move on. That's what the purpose of practices are in between your games. And coaching and nutrition and health and fitness are exactly the same. And just because you failed in the past does not mean that's what's going to happen now. Yes. We take all of your past experiences, we show you where things wrong, you learn why that happened and then how to do things properly. And then you practice them. And then in between your games, which would be like your check-ins, okay, we're seeing little wins here and we're moving forward. And just because you had one bad week does not mean next week will be a bad week. And the week after that will be a bad week. But you have to make the choices to practice in between to help you win those games in between. So it's I always do analogies with kids and sports and just because I feel like it's something, every mom gets it, but it's but it makes sense though. You wouldn't be like, oh yeah, you've lost this game. There's no way you're going to win. You would never say that to a kid, but it's the same thing with you and your health and your fitness. And the best part is you have so much more control over that. But you are literally the thing that's getting in your own way, which is really hard to accept sometimes. And you have to be willing to view this as practice. You're practicing being more consistent. You're practicing working out. You're practicing making better nutritional choices. You're practicing eating enough food, all of these things. And it's it's hard at first because you haven't mastered it yet. If I were to go and try skiing, I haven't skied in years, it probably would be really hard and I would fall and it would be a disaster. But you have to practice. That's how you get better. And nutritional literacy and tracking and meal planning and exercise are all really just skills when you look, when you break it down, that's what they are. They're skills and you need to practice them to get to where you want to be.
Yeah, it's just work. Just like you said, each one of these things you've talked about, you see how with that message that I got where she's guarantee me 10 pounds lost. And I think, but you're missing the beautiful part of it. And I think you and I, because we've been doing this for so many years now and we're on the other end of it too. I mean, I shouldn't say that because we're always learning and growing and evolving, right? But at least I'm past that first phase where I had the self-doubt. I didn't want to put money into something. I didn't necessarily understand, I don't know necessarily what to do, but I also didn't want it bad enough, right? And so when you kind of go through some of those shifts, because it clicks and you're like, oh no, I'm becoming, like we've talked about this whole time, a better version of me or healthier version of me, then it's easier to make those. So it's always kind of the trick of how do you get this woman to this client to feel that she's worth enough, that has enough value to where she's willing to leave the comfort zone of that old identity. Because for me, I was always the 6 foot tall beanpole. Like up until when I got married, I weighed 125 pounds.
Oh my goodness.
I was at 6 feet tall. I was a stick, and I couldn't, it wasn't like I could use it for volleyball or basketball because I sucked. And so I just was a walking stick. And so my identity has always been someone that like, I could eat whatever I wanted, but I was always like, not made fun of, but like joked with, you know, they do that where it still kind of digs you, but it's like, well, it's fine. It's whatever. I just was always a tall, skinny one, beanpole, like my whole life, that was my identity. And, I'm now weigh like almost 155. Like it's totally different because it's muscle. And I now have a very different identity through the process of shifting from going from this skinny girl that was very insecure, that didn't ever want to get out of her comfort zone, that was quiet, that was shy, like some of the, the traits you talked about. And I didn't necessarily want to be that anymore. And so when I got in that middle ground of like, crap, my identity is being super skinny and I can eat whatever I want, I didn't have to exercise, to where after 4 children, that identity that I like was tied to was not reflecting. And so I'm crabby, irritable. Oh my gosh, my swimsuit, like I had a 2-piece in the bottom, like you couldn't see the side of the swimsuit because my body fat had come so far over it. And I looked at it, I'm like, I can't even see it, but it fit last summer, right? And so my identity was this person that didn't have to watch their health, really. And I'd gotten by, but felt crappy. And as I allowed that to shift of like, you have to let go of the skinny jokes, right? That's all that I ever got. I kind of got made fun of for, to where I'm going to try now the identity of someone that does make healthier choices. And it always would start to surprise people because they'd always joke about how much sugar or, I don't know, just some negative, oh, you're just not going to want to come and hike with us. She's going to have to stay back with mom. Like, it was just like, I could never keep up. That was always me. Jess is back, so she won't want to do it because she's going to babysit the kid. She can't keep up. And so I would tell myself, I can't keep up on hikes with all my cousins and sisters. I'm going to stay back with mom and the little kids. And you have to decide, I don't want that anymore. And it may be just like little baby steps, but I can do more things. And getting out of that comfort zone is hard to leave the I am this, and this. And then, like we talked about, just 1 or 2 things a week, say, I want to become someone that drinks more water, or that exercises twice a week, or just walks around the block a few times in the morning because that's all that I can handle today. And it's I am now someone that walks around the block. Instead of like, oh yeah, I hate walking, I used to drive to get my mail. So it's like those little teeny wins, but when those add up, at least for me over so many years, I don't ever get told like, oh, you're skinny, you can't do anything. People always now say, oh, you don't get it because you've always been an athlete. And I'm like, oh, that is so funny. Like, where are my siblings? They need to hear this, because it was like awful, like where I came from. So I'm like, no, I have not always been an athlete. That's not my identity. Like now, it wasn't then like, this is where I am, this is what I'm doing. But I had let go of all of those insecurities I had, and I'd labeled myself with, to like where I am now. But that process of growth is so impactful.
Totally. No, like for me, like I remember being in high school, I was bullied so much. Like high school,
oh no,
people look at me now, they're like, you must have been so popular. I'm like, no.
Yeah, because you're beautiful.
Oh, thank you. No, I was bullied. Like I tried so hard to just like achieve, to give me my best chances to get out of there. Cause like I hated high school. Honestly, it was the worst place ever.
I'm so sorry.
And I loved sports and like tried really hard in school and like wanted to get the scholarships because we weren't well off, and like I needed to do that so I could like get myself somewhere,
out.
right? Yeah. And I mean, I grew up in a town of 1,000 people. Like there was 40 people in my grad class. Like our high school was from grade 7 to 12 with 200 students. Like it was small. So I didn't have choices with friends. Like, this is what you got. Like, it's really all it was, right? And I would always get the comment of like, you think you're so much better than everybody else. And I was like, I don't understand this, because I was so insecure, did not like attention, but like anything that came with like success in sport or academics, like I hated getting acknowledged, because for me, it was like, it just opened up the ability for someone to like say something. And so like, I always worked really hard, but like didn't want the acknowledgement. And it actually prevented me from like trying things, because like I didn't want attention. I didn't want to be seen. And now it's like, completely different person. But like, and I think a lot of people are like that. They're afraid to be seen. They're afraid to like change, because then it opens up this door for like, oh, you're trying to lose weight again, or oh, you're trying to do this again. And like, it opens up that door. And then like going back on like the guarantee thing, like, oh, I'll sign up if you can guarantee this. The conversation I always have is, okay, so there's 3 things here. 1, you're not ready. Like you're looking for something with like potentially little effort because like you want to know it works, but it works if you put in the work. So like I cannot guarantee the choices that you're going to make. I can give you all the information and stuff, but I cannot guarantee your choices. 2, you don't trust me yet, which is totally fine. Like consume some more content. Maybe there's another coach for you. That is fine. Or 3, you're just not ready to make the change, which is also just fine. But like there is no guarantees with anything. Like that is 1000% in your control. And people hate this because they're like, well, I have this and I have this and I have this and I have this. And it's like, yeah, I grew up in a home. Like I should not, like looking at how I grew up, like for me to have a successful business and to like achieve all these things, like I came from nothing, like a dad who like gambled and like physically abused us. We lived in a house that had mold. Like we were not in a good place. Like he owed a lot of people money. It was a really bad situation. And so like, but you can make choices. There is so much that is in your control that like, if I can do what I'm doing right now, like you can absolutely take control of your health. It's going to take time. It is not going to be easy. It is simple. Like when you look at the grand scheme of things, it is simple, but simple doesn't mean that it's easy. It's going to take effort. There's going to be resistance. There's going to be times where you want to give up, but like you have choices that you make every single day. And you just have to decide what those choices are going to look like for you. And like, are they more likely to give you the positive or negative consequences that you're trying to avoid or achieve, right? And like, that's really what it comes down to in the long run. And I think a lot of people will like hold on to like a bit of a crutch almost of like, well, I can't do this because of this. And I can't do this because of my hormones. And I can't do this because of my age. And I can't do this because of this surgery. And it's like, but you can. There is always a way. There is not just like this one plan. And like the plan that you're given at the beginning is probably going to change multiple times, because when has anything ever that you've planned the first time ever gone correctly? Like even for our wedding, it's like Taylor ended up having a huge gash on his forehead the day before our wedding. My sister super glued his face shut.
Oh my gosh. That's like supposed to be the most perfect day.
Yeah. We had like people not show up. We had other people show up last minute. Like it doesn't happen. But you know what? We got married and we had a great day. And like your health journey is very much like that you're going to have all these hiccups and unexpected, and there'll be unexpected wins and unexpected losses. But like you can get there, but you have to keep going and you have to be dedicated to that and slowly like working up that effort scale like you were talking about to get there, because that's the only way to do it. That's really what it comes down to.
You know, you said that perfectly. And I wish it didn't take so much time. Like think of your own journey. Like for one, the journey for you to learn all that you've all your certifications, the time you put in to get to where you are is such a great coach. And then your own physical journey to get your body to where it is and understand hormones and all these things. And so it's like the analogy of like, because people always say, well, years ago, I used to look like this, or I had this body. And I'm like, great, but you're not that identity anymore, or you'd look like that, right? You'd feel like that. You're now here, so you have the identity of this person. And I almost like go back to that first person they compare themselves to, and it's like, at that point, for some reason, life changes, stressors, we start to walk into a forest, right? And you walk 5,000 feet into the forest. You now have become, with all these little choices, right, as an analogy, all these little choices, you've become this new identity, and you've gotten yourself to where you're maybe 40 pounds overweight. You're sedentary, you don't move, you don't have healthy eating choices, we don't feel great, right? Whatever it is that we did. But it took us 5,000 steps, and you're now this person. Right? That's the identity of who you are. But then they, like the email that I got, she's like, well, great, I give you 1 month to change me. And I'm like, that'll get you from like 5,000 steps to 4,556. Yeah. Like, that's nothing. Like you are the identity of someone, whether we like it or not, that eats out, overeats, doesn't move, right? Whatever we are. And I'm not saying that there's wrong or it's bad, but if you don't like where you are, right, it's up to you. You then have 5,000 steps to come back to adjust those same habits to get back to the identity of somebody that is at whatever weight that you want to be at, feels how you want to feel at. But they think we can go from 5,000 all the way down to 1,000 step. I'm like, you're in that forest so far, like you are that person now. You gotta, and sometimes because I want you to go as slow as you need to, it can take 3 years to get back out of it.
Totally. And if you think back to who you used to be too, it's like everyone thinks of like their prime of like whatever they looked like, right? And it's like, did you have kids? Were you like worried financially about like supporting your family? Did you have a mortgage? Were you doing a lot of self-care? Like how are your relationships with friends versus what are they now? What was your sleep like then? Like you have to think of like everything, because like the self-care relationships times to yourself, that actually plays a huge impact. And I'm like, yeah, like when I talk to people, they're like, yeah, I was single. And I'm like, yeah, you're probably working out every day. And you were like sleeping in, you were having good recovery, like you had great relationships, you were enjoying your life. We need to get you back to enjoying your life. And like these things will help. Like it's a lot easier to want to go work out when you're not miserable. Let's be honest. When you're having a bad day, the last freaking thing I want to do is go work out. I'm like, I want to stay home and veg and not talk to anyone and be in my pajamas all day.
Exactly. Exactly. There's so many facets of it. And it's, like you said, whether it's skiing, snowboarding, learning to play the piano, it's really taking the time to understand how your body works. And you're not going to be motivated to do that every day. But when you look at I'm not motivated to lose 30 pounds. So that's not what we're working towards. You need motivated to do the one little step, the step and action step, like just this little second today. But they'll see such a different, all of it shifts, right? And it's those little wins. If you can just have a little win, you'll be more motivated to do that little win the next day, and then the little win the next day. And it took me so long to figure that out. That's why I focused on only food for a whole year. I didn't even move. So when I was 37 is when I started, that whole year was just no sugar. And it was like getting that down and figuring out what sugar I respond worse or less to, or how to replace treats with healthier treats, or like I had cravings. I was an emotional eater and it was always sugar. And so that took me a whole year, and I didn't touch serving sizes or what my meals were made up of. But I also wasn't driven by, I need my body to look a certain way. I realized like for me to get back to that point, I need to understand, because tell me, at least this is me, if you've gone through this, to where if I'm at like 150 now, and I'll say like, okay, I want to be 145. I'll be happy if at 145. But when I was 145, I wasn't happy then either. I wanted to be 140. Then I was at 140, I wanted to be 135. And it's like, there's never a happy, content place with any number on the scale. And so if we can steer them away from that, and like we said, like the little wins, becoming this new person, the weight will start to shift because of all the changes you're making. And whatever number you are, this is what you guys specialize in is hormones. And at 44, I'm not even like where I was at 43. Like I can't even compare myself to last month, let alone 10 years ago.
Yeah, exactly. Oh. No, and I think that's part of it, is we just get so stuck on like, I know I can do this because I was there once. And it's like your life and who you were was so different. And that doesn't mean you can't improve or get closer to that. But like, if we can like relinquish the expectation and the timelines, oh my gosh, you're going to feel so much better. And like your chances of getting there are a lot higher.
Yeah. Isn't it? It's strange. It just comes down to so much of your mindset, which isn't what you think, right? It's because that's what I thought. I was like, I'll skip meals. I remember thinking, oh my gosh, I'm so proud of myself because I didn't eat breakfast. I'm going to lose fat, right? And then it was like, oh, I'm not super hungry for lunch. I'm going to have a small lunch. I'm so proud of myself. I'm going to lose fat. And then it was, I did cardio because I was never ever like, the thought of strength training or lifting weights never even entered my head. It was like, girls like that do that. I don't play sports. Like it wasn't even like someday could I, it didn't even enter my head that that's something that I could do because that wasn't my identity. But then, over years of practicing and trying different things, realizing, okay, I'm now, 13 pounds heavier than when I finally got to my goal weight. I hit my goal weight and then I didn't like it. I'm like, I'm just kind of like a skinny fat, right? I hate that term, but we get it because I lost muscle and all those things. And I'm like, this isn't, when I pictured 6 months from now where I want to be, this is not it. Like, I still can't do a push-up and I still can't keep up with my siblings hiking, but I'm skinny on the scale. And that was my shift of like, there's got to be something else to this I'm missing. And so that's when I introduced weight training and lifting weights. And it was a gradual process. Like if you go back far enough on my Instagram, it's I don't want to say embarrassing because it's part of my journey, but I was like, what am I doing? Like, but you don't know. And so I keep them all because it's part of the journey. And now 5 years later, like it's my favorite part of the day, is starting my day with movement and challenging myself. And my identity is now different. As much as I'd like to cling to that insecure, skinny beanpole,
yeah,
there's just a little bit of muscle on it now.
Yeah, it's crazy how much like things can shift, and like we really don't realize it till we take a time to like reflect back. This was so good, Jess. I feel like we could talk for hours, like we usually do when we're together. But if anyone wants to like follow you and like see where you're at and your journey and stuff, where is the best place for people to find you?
Well, thank you. For one, thank you for the opportunity to come chat with you. You're, like I said, one of my favorite people to talk to, and we see things so similarly. So pretty much everything is my Instagram handle is gunning and the number 4 fitness. So gunning for fitness. That's also my website. You can have access to any of my workout programs. And my deal is helping women build, right? Find that strongest version. I want to be able to teach you how to lift correctly so that you can reach your goals. I want you to have that confidence that we can get off the cardio machines and focus on how strong you can be, both mentally and physically. And again, it can start with the pink 5-pound dumbbells. Like, I don't care where you start, but just luring people to the side of like strength training, because I promise you that's the body that everyone describes. We just don't know how to get it to. And so I love that I can be part of that process of helping them, I guess, build the strongest body, healthiest body, whatever that looks like for you. So I really enjoy it.
Perfect. Awesome. Thank you so much for being on. And
Thanks,
if you guys like this, make sure to share it, because I love Jess. We're really good friends now.
Thank you so much, Steph.
Okay, perfect. Bye.